Rabbi Cheskel Landau, which is the author of the Noda B'Yehuda, he was a rabbi in the city of Prague. Besides being the genius, having an encyclopedic knowledge of the Torah, he had a heart of gold, and the compassion was ready to help every single human being. One night, he's coming home from shul, from the synagogue, and he sees a young non-Jewish boy sitting with ragged clothing, tears in the corner, sobbing, crying. So he goes over to this to this boy and says, young man, what's going on? What's wrong? And he sees next to this boy was an empty basket. And the boy opens up to the rabbi and he says, listen, his mother died last year and his father was a baker and he remarried his, which is now his stepmother. He says, his stepmother is a very cruel and wicked woman. He says, every morning she wakes me up at dawn and fills me up a basket full of rolls of bread. And I have to sell every single piece of bread. And if I fail to sell even one, she beats me, she whisks me, she makes me go to bed without food. And he goes and he says, I'm afraid to go home at this point in time. And the rabbi says, why? He looks at the basket and says, the basket's empty. You must have sold everything. And the boy says, yeah, I did sell everything. He says, but when I was on the way home, I put my hand in my pocket to make sure I had the money, and the money's gone. I can't find that. I don't know, maybe I lost it, maybe it was stolen. He says, how do I go home without any bread and without any money? He says, she's going to beat me till who knows what. So the rabbi goes over to this young boy. He says, why don't you come with me? So maybe I can help you out. Maybe we can work something out. So the boy, not knowing where else to go, walks with the rabbi. The rabbi brings him to his house, gives him some food. The boy was starving. And the boy gobbles it up and he says, thank you very much. And then the rabbi, after he finishes, feeding him, he takes out 30 gold coins and he says, take this and bring this to your parents. The boy's face lit up, smiling, saying, wow, thank you so much. And the boy left. Years passed. The rabbi forgot about the story. And it was the 7th day of Pesach, Passover, and everybody was asleep. The rabbi was sitting up and learning in his study. And all of a sudden, he hears a very soft knock on the door. It's like at the early hours of the morning, who's knocking over there? He goes over there and he sees this young Gentile man standing in front of there. And he says, can I help you? And he says, Rabbi, you don't recognize me. He says, but many, many years ago, he starts telling him the story about the bakery, and then I was a little boy, and the rabbi says, oh yeah, of course, how's everything? And this young man says, Rabbi, he says, you saved me back then, and your kindness, your generosity really, really touched me, and I've always wanted to pay you back, but there was never a time that I could. He says, but the time is now that I decided that I'm going to pay you back. And he says, listen, Rabbi, the Jews of Prague are in grave, grave danger. So the rabbi says, what's going on? Well, what happened? He says, last night, all the bakers in Prague met at my father's home, and they instigated a plan on the direction of my wicked stepmother, and they decided that they're going to put poison in all the bread that they sell to the Jews because it was Passover, and Jews were not allowed to bake, so they would end up buying according to whatever, obviously certain criteria, they ended up buying the bread from the non-Jewish bakeries, and they decided they're going to put poison in all the bread. Make sure that you don't buy anything. But I am begging of you, please do not make sure that no one finds out that it was I who told you this, because I'm putting my life at risk over here. So the rabbi said, thank you very much. I appreciate all your help. And they part ways. The next day, the rabbi's thinking, he says, how am I going to go make sure that I say that no one eats this poison, and make sure that and he's thinking, and all of a sudden he decides it was the 8th day of Pesach, and he calls and he sends out a message to the whole town. So back then in Prague, there was a Jewish quarter, so everybody lives pretty close to each other. He said, I'm closing all the synagogues in the entire district. Everybody has to go to the main synagogue. And I said, I want to speak. And everybody comes for the final day of Pesach to the main synagogue. And the rabbi, the chief rabbi of Prague, stands up and he says, listen, he goes and he tells everybody, he says, because of our situation, that we're so far removed from our Sinai, and because the Torah has becoming more and more forgotten, unfortunately, mistakes are made. And unfortunately, I have to confess, there was a mistake that was made. We miscalculated the days of Passover. Passover, really, what we're thinking today is the 8th day. Really, it's the 7th day. And there's another day of Passover. And he gives out this message to everybody, and everybody's like, wow, I can't believe it. They, thank God that they found out the mistake, because we would have eaten chametz on Pesach. Like everybody was very grateful and very happy that they were able to catch this mistake. Meanwhile, this gave the rabbi another day. He was able to go and, deal with the police and go and explain the situation. And the long story short, they were able to go and test the bread, and they found out that it was poison, and they they rammed out all the bakers, and due punishment was met. However, the rabbi didn't tell the story to anybody. Only when he was about to pass away, he told his son, Rav Shmuel Landau, the author of Shivat Zion. He told his son, he says, I want to let you know. He says that it wasn't through my wisdom that I was able to save the Jews, and this was a famous story, but rather it was because of an act of kindness that I once did for a Gentile child, for a non-Jewish child, because the act of compassion, the act of kindness, we don't realize not only the ramifications that it has in this world, but the ramification that it has in the next world, and in this world in the future. Who would have thought that something kind that he did 20 years prior would save the entire Jewish city of Prague, which is a very, very large